Cool. You laughing at my finger roll? I love it.
I
It's still
loved
a
it.
favorite dance.
I was kind of laughing at myself because I I was thinking about our Women Connecting Wisdom shoulder roll, and
Hmm.
then I was like, "Oh, I got to turn down the music," but I couldn't
Yeah.
hold the dance while I was turning down
Mhm.
the music today, which often I do. But
Mhm.
it was I was laughing at myself about the state of my being today. How are you, my
Mm.
friend?
I am great. I'm super excited about this conversation today and overall grateful. I've been doing a lot of really cool stuff since I've started to work for myself. More of the stuff I love is included in my schedule. So I've been having a great time. What about you?
Right? Yes, yes. Like I have been catching up on a lot of things. I've been
Yeah.
doing a lot of fun things. I'm just grateful.
Yeah.
Wednesdays is always one of my favorite days because it's podcast production day,
Yeah.
and I get to hang out with you and work on
Yes.
our businesses. And
Yeah.
then tonight, I'm actually also doing an event. I'm speaking, and let me tell you so I don't quote it the wrong way. I
Yes.
am speaking at the Watering Wholeness event. It is a group of women that are connected in wisdom on the West Coast,
Oh,
and they invited me to come talk, and so I'm going to do that. I may have to get a little caffeine because
okay. I
it's
have mine.
it's 9 p.m. because
Hmm.
it's a West Coast gig. But
Yeah.
can I just give a shout out to you before we kick it off and do our official? Well done on your keynote speech at
Thank you.
Agnes Scott this
Thank you
week.
so
Like
much.
I was so delighted to be there, and just yeah, that was very well done.
Thank you.
You're
Having you
welcome.
and Cecile there was like amazing, and if you guys are listening, you don't know who Cecile is. She's one of our well-known experts on the show, right? One of our Amazon best-selling authors. And she made the trip all the way from Virginia down to Atlanta for our very first book signing on January 28th. And she used her last day to run around and do some fun stuff with Christine. And one of those things were to come were was one of those things was yes, to come support me at my keynote speech. So thank you so much for your continuous support, and it was great. I went to
Right?
Kennesaw, and so to be able to go to Agnes Scott and talk to the ladies about being intentional about wellness and boundaries, and you're not crazy, and this is what a lot of people go through, and this is how we maintain our wellness was amazing.
Right? And those
Yeah,
cupcakes, even though I didn't get
they
to
were
eat one because I'm
good.
free, but everybody was giving a shout out for the
No, really.
cupcakes. And I
Yes.
can't remember where they were from because it was a local black owned business. So
Ooh.
I wish we had their
I'll
card
reach out
just
to
to give them
Kayla.
a shout out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll
So
probably
shout
do
out to
that.
Kayla for a great choice, and we can get the information and get it to our listeners.
I love it. All right.
Absolutely.
Should we do our official kickoff and get this show
Absolutely.
rolling? Let's do it.
Absolutely. Hi, ladies. I am Shannon Mitchell, a Black millennial business owner, author, and the founder of Shalo Glow LLC, an all natural handmade personal products company that helps people glow from head to toe. I am your champion for self care, business care, and intentional wellness.
Hi, y'all. I'm Christine Gotro, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, Amazon bestselling author with my friend Shannon and
Yes.
17 others, and a dancing social worker who helps you upgrade yourself in community care.
Yes, together we are a podcast rooted in the 8 dimensions of wellness and the co founders of Women Connected in Wisdom community.
And we like to get together every week to have intentional conversations about how to be wise in business and relationships in life. Like, how do we do this?
Whew, every day. And every day it's like, and me and my friends talk about this. Feel like the enemy will try your life. Something comes up and it's like, wait a minute, this is this difficult situation. It might try to change your energy, right? And I think about the things that I have to hold on to that bring me joy, right? We talked one episode, what are two things that went well today? And so I had the Agnes Scott, and then I had all this stuff I was looking forward to for our royalty day tonight, right? For our 103rd episode, things to look forward to. And there's situations trying to grab it. I'm like, no, you're not going to distract me that I was just a keynote speaker for Black History Month. Like, that's not going to happen.
Right?
You can't distract me from the Black Beauty Expo and the book launch and the book signing. So for me, what we're talking about today, intellectual wellness, is right on time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and boy, there is so much to distract us and
Yeah.
try to. I mean, there's a lot of really serious stuff going on in the world, as
Yeah,
we
there
all
is.
know,
Hmm.
and yes, to balancing it and with the gratitudes and with
Right.
what went well and what's working,
Yeah.
and even when we do the hard stuff,
Hmm.
it's I think it's important.
Yeah.
So we're talking about intellectual wellness today. You want to give our listeners the definition?
Absolutely. Intellectual wellness includes having access to different sources of information and developing critical thinking and timely decision making skills. Also, continual learning through intentional intellectual growth, situations, and artistic creativity can help maintain one's intellectual capacity.
Learning new things.
Hmm.
You know,
Learn new
that's one of
things
our
and
favorite things.
new perspectives. Oh, I didn't think about it that way, and it
Right.
could, for me, I love it because, like we were talking about last week with Cecile, it can help create new habits. Okay, this is a new perspective. I see it differently. Let me make this a habit so that I can be even more effective, save even more
Right.
time, use my money even wiser. That's why I love thinking about
Right.
how to do things better, intellectual wellness.
I love that. And I'm so looking forward to this conversation with our guest today. Should I give the lineage and where this came from before we introduce her?
I think that's appropriate. Let's do
I
it.
love it because we are women connected in wisdom,
Yeah,
right?
we are.
So we get guests from different publishers, we get different guests from publicity folks, we get guests from friends and family,
Yeah.
and this guest comes to us from our friend and Amazon bestselling author
Yes.
Chartesia Griffin,
Yes.
and she and I served on the Reforming Arts nonprofit board together, and that is how we met and got connected,
Hmm.
and how you got connected. Like, it's just, I love the connections. Like, we all, and Chartesia was a part of our manifesting Monday for a little bit, but
Yes, she
if you
was.
read her chapter in the book, you will understand her schedule is a little wild. So
Yes. Yes,
and we
literally.
haven't gotten to see her lately because she's been busy doing a lot of legislative stuff, but she was like, y'all, you have to meet this person. And
Right.
so we did. We had a coffee and chat, and we are excited. Are you ready? You want me to read her
Absolutely.
bio and bring
Yes,
her up? All
please.
right, because we
Yes.
are excited to introduce her to our listeners. So, y'all, Bridgette Simpson is a formerly incarcerated survivor, activist, advocate, entrepreneur, published author, motivational speaker. Boy, she needs to hang out with us, doesn't she? Mentor, certified life coach, and
Mm,
co-founder of Bard Business and the formerly incarcerated Small Business Rescue Fund,
mm.
Minister of Organizing for M4BL, organizer for Women Run campaign, canvasser for Working Families Party, and a trailblazer who partners with other survivors, activists, social justice reform organizations,
Yes.
organizers, public figures, formerly incarcerated and incarcerated people to empower, inspire change, and promote hope. So, welcome to our stage, Bridgette. We are so glad you're here.
Oh, you're
Oh,
muted.
you're on mute, my friend.
Okay, well, I got to get off. Hi, thank you all for
Hey,
having me.
absolutely. That's like the second line in every Zoom for the past 2, 3 years, right?
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So excited to have this conversation with you. Like Christine was talking about, I was on the phone with Chartesia one day, right? Checking on her because we know the schedule is crazy. And she's telling me about the legislation that she's working on. And I said, that is so cool that she was working on our book and the legislation at the same time. I wonder if we're going to be able to talk more about this. And then that week she reached out about you being on the show. So I'm super excited for you to share your story.
Well, awesome.
Yes,
Again, just to keep in tune with the past 2 years, thank you all for having me. And
absolutely.
yeah, Chartesia is, yeah, very amazing human being. I've known her for quite some time. I often think people don't realize just how long I have known Chartesia for, but is a very, very solid person. So I'm so excited for all of her good fortune. I couldn't think of a more deserving person. So like you all said, my name is Bridgette Simpson. Not quite sure about who that person was in the bio. I try to stay underneath the humility line, but yeah, we have been working on some things over here at Bard Business, some of which involved helping to make justice impacted people a protected class in the city of Atlanta. And our goals are to eventually end up a protected class on the state level, and then eventually we want to combat the Civil Rights Act of 1964, where we can actually amend that and become a part of the federally protected group of people who can actually have an opportunity to live, grow, and earn without discrimination. So yeah, so that is the beginnings of the work that we're doing. I never ever thought that I would end up doing any work like this. Did not see it in my purview, but I firmly believe that when God has a different plan or a purpose for you, you just end up there, whether you
Yes.
want to or not. You just gotta end up there. So yeah,
Bridgette, yes, I completely agree with you. And for our listeners that may not understand, when you said have the same rights
yes.
as the Civil Rights Act of 1964,
So
expand on that a little and tell our listeners why folks who are justice impacted, and even what that definition is.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So let's start there with justice impacted. It's a definition. Actually, we have a shirt out right now. It's our shirt. It's our fundraiser for the Black Mamas Day bailout that we have coming out. And it gives the definition of what a justice impacted person is. So it's a person that has come in contact with the criminal legal system. So someone that may not have necessarily went to jail or prison but have a felony conviction still is considered justice impacted, right? Because they experience the same hardships as someone who has served time being incarcerated, right? But you think about it, they might not face some of the same dysphoria to the world, but they still on paper face the same type of situations that I would face after serving 10 years. So I served 10 years in the Georgia Department of Corrections. And after coming home, like my transition wasn't smooth. I thought that I was going to, be open to so many opportunities because I was me. And I was going to tell someone, hey, I have these particular skill sets, these particular offerings, but it did not work out that way. It was like, yeah, and you have this record. So go over there or go over here, wherever, just don't be here. So though some people who have felony convictions might not have that particular experience, they do still face hardships when it comes to getting a place to live, jobs, and some of the other many. It's 44,000 collateral consequences that are associated with people who are justice impacted.
Whoa,
So
whoa, whoa, wait. Did you just say 44,000
44,000.
collateral?
Yes.
Whew.
I could run down the list, right? There are some that we don't think about. There is the global entry, right? There's a lot of people who feel very bad when they can't have global entry, right? But there are things like your child can't be a Gerber baby. They will reject your application. It does not matter how cute your baby is. You cannot be a Gerber baby. You cannot adopt in this state. Pretty much there are very rigid laws around adoption for people who are justice impacted. Same thing goes for if you want to go through like a fertility treatment, there are grants for that, and you don't qualify for the grant because they deem you unworthy. So yeah, the list goes on. Of course, housing, voting, some of the more obvious ones. But in the state of Florida, folks can't get their driver's license back. There are so many different things. You can't fish. You can't have a fishing license. You cannot, become, like if you were a nurse, they strip you of a lot of those licenses. Yes, you can't fish.
Wait a second. You cannot, is that in Georgia or all across the nation?
I know it's in Georgia, right? But we can definitely look together for the rest
So
of
then
the
we're talking about feeding people. So
yeah.
then we're talking about I mean, because housing is already to me one of the number one issues. It is hard to get housing because you have to check that box. You know, when anybody that's ever filled out a housing application for rental or a loan or things like that, you know, there tends to be that box that people who are not justice impacted don't even realize is there, right?
Right.
It's the one that says, have you ever had a felony? Have you ever had a felony conviction? And sometimes the box says, have you ever been arrested? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what people who haven't experienced that don't realize is that little box has this, what did you say, 44,000 consequences?
Collateral consequences.
Collateral consequences.
Yes.
Hmm.
Whew.
That little box, that little box. So, they say the fine print, whatever the large print giveth, the fine print taketh away. It's the same thing with that box. So whatever opportunity that application boasted, it took it away with the box. And actually, that's how Bard Business got started around the SBA, because during the pandemic, we were all business owners, and we just thought it would be natural for us to just go ahead and apply. And then they were like, "Oh no, here's this box," and no, you cannot. Right?
So anybody that was justice impacted didn't have access to, if I'm hearing you correctly, to the same funds that other people did during the shutdown.
No. Initially they did not. Eventually, the SBA did come around. Shout out to the SBA. They did eventually come around after some organizing and some coaching. But you know, as we were talking on our talk earlier, and I was
Yes.
talking about what it looks like for an opportunity to invite people into a different narrative, right? Like, folks just automatically assume that people who are justice impacted deserve to continuously be discriminated against, because they're still thinking of a person 15 years ago. And we know that we're not the same people from yesterday. Like, we change and we go through different things. So they're still wanting to hold a person to the worst times in a person's life, and never allow a person to go through their natural process. We as humans, we actually, we evolve and we grow and we metamorphose. But if we don't have that opportunity, unfortunately, we get stuck in the repetitive cycle, which is called recidivism, right? And those are the things that my organization, that we fight. That's what we fight against. We fight against narratives, because narrative is the number one enemy. Because whatever a person believes, so it is. So if we can actually have an opportunity to converse with people and to offer a different understanding, a different, just a different awakening, to understand that we are all human beings. Fundamentally, at the end of the day, we're all human beings.
Right. And I love what you just said about welcoming them to be part of the conversation, right? So you have two events coming up, right? One tomorrow, if
Mhm.
people want to, we always talk about wisdom in action. If they want to be involved and come be a part of it, you have something tomorrow and something on the 20th, right? Can you tell us more about those?
Okay, so tomorrow we are having a panel discussion. It's called Abolition in the City. It definitely is a spoof off of Sex in the City. I used to love that show. So it definitely is a spoof. But what we're doing, we're creating a platform for folks who may not have all of the same opinions, to actually have a conversation. There's so much that could be changed with simple word exchange. So that's what we're offering. We're offering a platform for folks to talk about some of the work that's moving in Atlanta, to be able to debate, right? Like, to principally struggle is what we call it, to be able to agree, to disagree, to not agree at all, but to at least come to the table so we can begin to heal together. So that's what the offering is tomorrow, and it's called Abolition and the City. I'm so proud of that name, by the way. And it's at the Cupcakery. Speaking of amazing cupcakes, it's at in East Point. The Cupcakery. If you just type that in any of your browsers, you can find it easily. They have the best red velvet and key lime Key Lime Cupcakes. They are absolutely amazing. Small business, black owned, husband and wife duo, and they're amazing. I've seen all their children come
Yeah.
here. They're
Love to
really
see
good.
it.
Yeah. And then on the 20th, we
Yes.
are back at it again in front of city council. We invite people to come out and speak at public comment and talk about somebody that you know that has been impacted by this criminal legal system. Um, we were joking a little bit earlier and we were talking about everyone knows someone
Mhm.
that is
Mhm.
just impacted. And I want folks to let that resonate with them for a minute. Everyone knows someone that is justice impacted. And if you don't know anyone, these people are lying to you.
You don't know their whole story.
You do not know their whole story. There are what 10.8 million people in Georgia, and 4.3 million of those people are justice impacted. So let that resonate.
Right? Almost 50% of
Almost 50.
Georgians,
So you know
right?
somebody. You know someone.
You. And I want to speak this into the space because as a white woman, often I know that a lot of white people think, "Oh, it's the other people. It's not." And I need to speak it into the space that criminal justice and justice impacted people are from all walks of life. They are from all ethnicities. They are all from all socioeconomic backgrounds. They are from all races. Like, y'all, this impacts so many people. Now, it does traditionally impact people that are poorer, and it
Mhm.
tends to impact black and brown bodies because of
Mhm.
racial profiling and racism. It definitely has a higher impact, but it impacts all types of people. And I can't remember the statistics. Bridgette, you may be able to help me with this. A couple of years ago, we had this statistic at Reforming Arts. Like the amount of women who are being incarcerated right now is on the rise,
Mhm.
especially in Georgia. Like
Mhm.
those numbers have been rising exponentially.
Yeah, over 800% since 1980. It more women are being incarcerated as they build more prisons. So the same rate is the that women are being incarcerated is the same rate that they're building new facilities. So you are absolutely correct that incarceration, mass incarceration, it impacts us all in a very intimate way. And because poverty is the real criminal, we know that it disproportionately impacts Black and Brown bodies at higher rates. But I was locked up with everyone, right? Like we were locked up with people of different ethnicities, of different religious backgrounds. Like I learned how to do a lot of amazing things from different people that came through in my 10 years of being incarcerated. Everyone was not black. I met white people, I met Asian people, I met everyone, and we all had something in common is that they had us locked up and they didn't want to let us out. So we
Right?
definitely had that in common.
Right. And when we talk about how common it is for people to be locked up, right? I'm not saying that if somebody is attacking children that I don't want my children protected. That's not what we're talking about, right? But when I go back to it, I think about when I started dating one of my exes, and he had told me that he had been locked up, and I'm thinking about my other exes. I'm like, have all of them been locked up before? What's going on? But then I remember that I'm dating black men, right? So the likelihood is probably higher that, yeah, a lot of people have been locked up. So can you make this a character judgment, or is it something else, right? Of course it makes sense to ask certain questions, but like Christine mentioned, if we're in a system that was built in a way to where slavery was written into the laws when we were trying
Mhm.
to fight it out of the country, then it's made it so that 44,000 times, not just when you get convicted, is 44,000 times, and every time somebody looks at you and every time you try to go and apply yourself to build not only your own life and the foundation of wellness that we always talk about, but even your child can't be a Kerber baby and can't get that tax-free money that we might be able to write into the business and save for later. They're even impacted because I got pulled over and something might have happened, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And looking at especially dating, right? Like dating for me as a justice impacted person, it's been horrific. Horrific,
Yeah.
horrific. Like I remember having an amazing date walking up Kennesaw Mountain, thinking that someone was going to try to like woo me to marriage, and me getting at the top of the mountain telling him that I was formerly incarcerated. The walk down wasn't the same.
And I was there yesterday, so for
Yeah.
you to not you're not talking about the mountain, you're talking about the situation was harder than the
Yes,
mountain.
yes, it
Mm,
was, and literally, he told me he did not want his partners to know. He immediately had a level of shame,
mm,
because he worked in the King and Queen building, and because he had an image to uphold, and unfortunately, I wasn't a part of his image. And if we look at the statistics, roughly 80% of the people that are incarcerated are black folks, right? And of that statistics, I think the part that really like floors me
mhm.
is that about 48% of them are black men. So if you're dating a black man, more likely than not, he may have had some type of contact with the criminal legal system. And that does not mean that he is not a
Mm,
good subject to date, right? Like he's not, that doesn't mean that he's not going to be amazing to you. It
yeah.
just means that in this particular way that America orients to our folks, it
Mhm,
means that he will most likely be in contact. They build jails instead of schools. They tear down schools and prepare jails.
mhm.
So, you have to think about that and use a curve.
Yeah.
Fellas, you hear that? Use a curve. Use a
Yeah.
curve for me, okay?
Right.
Mhm,
Well, and we've talked about it on the show before with the school to prison pipeline and what has been set up for a lot of our kids that are black and brown, like that those private prisons and the way that it's going, like the odds are not in their favor. And but I want to circle back to something you said earlier, Bridgette, about you paid your due to society, you paid your time, you know we know that this system is flawed. I mean, we could spend a whole, I
Yeah.
don't know,
we could spend a
long
lot.
time. We could
A
spend a lot
a
of time.
book,
I
a
can't even
podcast, a season,
quantify, right?
exactly, yeah.
We all know that this system is flawed and it
Right.
is built on a racist system.
Mhm.
And so, and that being said, I think there's a myth, and I think people think, oh well, they've served their time. And the phrase comes up about they've paid their debt to society. But what I heard you say, and I know to be true, is that that's not true, because you've paid your debt to society, you did the consequence. You're not saying not to have a consequence, but what you're asking for is, after you've done that, after you have taken, that you should be allowed, and everybody should be allowed, to live their best life without extreme barriers.
To have protected fundamental rights.
Protected fundamental rights, yeah.
So when you think about it, what's on your list? We talked about the 44,000 list, right? What's on your list of protected fundamental rights that everybody should have?
Um, so I first want to say that when once you're released, you are released into an open-ended sentence. That sentence never ends. So they just give you 10 years or they give you 5 years, but what they really should say is life, right? They should say life outside of prison. You serve 10 years in prison and life outside of prison. They should be truthful so that we are able to actually situate our lives and our minds and wrap it around that. So some of the fundamental things that we should be able to have. Of course, we should be able to vote if we work, even though we are able to like all the jobs that they want us to work are the jobs that no one else wants to work, right? The jobs where it's likely that you might catch cancer, or it's likely that it will cut your lifespan in half. It's likely that you'll lose the mobility in your hands, your knees. You'll get your fingers will get locked up. Those are the jobs that they want us to work. But we work those jobs, right? Because we just want an opportunity. And we pay taxes. So we are paying taxes. So we should have the right to select who is governing us. So voting is a fundamental right that everyone should have access to. Everyone should have access to. Everyone should have access to being able to live somewhere, right? Like that's very basic. to be able to have food. We are denied food stamps. Like we're coming home with no skills. Like, right? Like some people like in male prisons, they're more skilled, right? I know a few men who go through, different programs, who come out being electricians, welders. Those things aren't offered at women's prison. They tell us to come home and do some hair, like, curl eyelash, something. But as far as like trades, we aren't exposed to those things. So I think fundamentally, we should be able to have skills that will translate into livable wages. So I think that that's super important. And I also think that, especially in this day and age, we should have access to digital knowledge. I had no clue what was going on a computer. It overwhelmed me so much that I would cry. Like now, I still have anxiety when I'm at work, when people are asking me for spreadsheets and they don't consider the fact that I was gone for a decade. And when I was gone, that Google wasn't even like Google Sheets, Google Docs, it wasn't even out. It came out in 2014 or 20 something, but I wasn't here. I came home in 2018. So something that people have oriented themselves to and that is forever changing, I had no idea. So
it's powerful, like the skills. And I also want to circle back to something you said, Bridgette, and I don't have the stats right in front of me, but you may know them. What people don't realize is, so if somebody is incarcerated, and in almost every state, but especially in the state of Georgia, you are working for that system. So you
yeah,
are working and you are not earning money. So when somebody leaves the prison system, and I don't know what it is currently, but it's something like 14 or $15. It was. Do you remember what it is?
yeah, it was somewhere in the along the lines of, I think, like $20,
Right.
$25. It was somewhere in along the lines of getting a bus ticket to go to
And
wherever
it really doesn't even pay for a bus ticket anymore.
it doesn't.
Can you
Right.
can you be more specific of what you're mentioning? So I know about the labor. I hear what you're saying.
Mhm.
What you're talking about is you get some type of money when you get out, and it's barely enough for a ticket.
Yeah, it's kind of like a card, and they give you some money to catch a ride, pretty much, to go to your next destination. So if you have to go to Alabama, you better hope that that $25 will get you as close to it as possible. So yeah, so that's what they do. They put it on different. They put it on little cards now, so that you're able to yeah, so that you're able to get a ride. That's all that it
I hear
can
you.
do. But
Get a
while
ride away.
yeah,
And
they can go
Charticia
for
is
like,
saying $35 to be
yeah.
exact. Oh, so it's gone up just a
Oh
little
yeah.
bit, but that doesn't even pay for the Uber.
That's
Because you think
inflation.
about
Yeah.
in Georgia, most state prisons are out in the, like, they're way out. So that doesn't even pay
Gainesville.
for the ride.
Mm,
And I just heard you say, and I want to lift up because most people don't understand, can't apply for food stamps. You
mm.
can't go fishing legally,
We can't get food.
and it's hard to get a job in housing.
And so if you don't have
And
housing,
we
you probably don't have land. So you can't
right?
fish, no land.
Yeah.
And we expect folks to be model citizens and everything to go smooth.
Hmm.
I think Charticia is laughing at me about the
Yeah, she's
fishing
laughing.
comment.
But they don't see, and I think that's the biggest misconception, right? They don't expect it to be smooth. This
Hmm.
is a well-oiled machine, and it's doing just what it should do, right? Because if you think about it, with these private prisons, they're publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange. You can look up any exchange. So if you think about it, for a shareholder, they want profits, right? And as a CEO, you have to deliver profits or you're going to get terminated, right? So when the profit is a human body, you want them to come back. You don't want it to work. You want to continue to increase your stock value. So, how do you do that? You make sure that our lives are as distressed as possible. So, that's why they need to tell us the truth. It's life after you serve 10 years, right? Like just be transparent.
Right.
Be transparent. And
No,
sorry,
go ahead. I'll let you finish. No, no
no, it's
problem.
okay. I just noticed like Charticia talked about just the labor, right? The free,
365 days.
yes, the free labor, no sick
Mhm.
time. You don't get to take off. You can be broke down if you're sick and you decide that you can't go to work. You're going to get written up. You're going to get written up. You're going to go to solitary confinement.
Mm.
And do you know how many large companies use prison labor?
And so you said earlier, you said this the statistic floored me, right? The statistic that's always floored me, and part of the reason I did a project on this in college is 80%, right? If we are 80% of the population that's incarcerated, but we're only 30% of the population, the math is not mathing. That's
Mm,
almost 3 times as high. And what we know is that crime happens within the community, right? So black on black crime, we can say that, but it's always it's white on white crime, it's Hispanic on
yeah.
Hispanic crime, because you commit crimes where you live. And because our living quarters have been separated, then we know that's how it happens. The difference is who is impacted by the system. Other people, clearly, if we're only 30% and we make up 80%, they might not get arrested, they might not get charged, they might not get all of these things. And then when we talk about jobs and occupational wellness, we're talking about different people taking jobs, but really the jobs are being funneled into the prison system so that we can pay pennies on a dollar for labor. And we're basing those numbers off of, again, third grade reading levels. So if we invested in the third grade development, or second or preschool, whatever it needed to be to get them to a certain level, it would be different. But again, if the system is set up for profit, and what I know as a business owner, what we know, right, ladies, is that, hey, you were responsible to the shareholders. So if you
Mhm.
are not turning profits, you're not doing your job. And that's the center
Mhm.
of what we're talking about.
I
Yes.
want to lift up the comment that Grip made. He says the military uses it.
Hmm.
So I want to just think about that for a second, because I don't think I knew that. And I mean, you think about that, because then what happens is you think about people in the military, they get really good benefits when they
Hmm.
come in that way. But then you're using free labor from the prison system that don't get jack. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
It's, it's
Whew,
it's it's slavery. So
Mhm.
it is.
we can definitely just name it, right? Like it's slavery, mass
Hmm.
incarceration. We know that this country was fundamentally built off of the backs of free labor, off of
Yep.
the backs of black folks. That's what this country was fundamentally made off of. That's why we are a superpower, because of the free labor that was extracted for over 400 years from a group of people. So after slavery was abolished, that's when the chain gang really got stood up so that we can actually extract it and name it something different, right? And then color it as right or wrong. But what it is, it's like, and I say this all the time and will continue to say that poverty is the real criminal, because I've never met a man that had all his needs met and still went to go steal bread. So we have to be able to look fundamentally into the neighborhoods, and like Shannon said, crime happens where inside of a neighborhood. So, there are a lot of false, false narratives that are
Mhm.
painted inside of news and media. But yeah, it's white on white crime, black on black crime, Asian on Asian crime, Mexican, Spanish, everyone, wherever you live, that's where, you will have, whatever interactions, however that works. Right. So I just wanted to lift that up because that was an amazing point, because
Thank you.
most people don't actually focus on that. And when we break down just like all of the false dichotomies that come from, just interacting with people, especially justice impacted people. I think the worst for me is when people start grabbing their purses. I'm like, hi, I don't want your purse. My purse is probably cuter, but it's an uncomfortableness that happens, right? It's a bag clutching that happens. It's a when there's a justice impacted person in your work area and you happen to find out, it's the extra locking of your drawers, it's the extra, it's the usage of the words, it's the things like, the just the expectation, negative expectation that you have for a justice impacted person, when in actuality, A person that has that job that's justice impacted will hold on to that job a lot faster than you for a lot longer than you, right? And probably wouldn't jeopardize themselves. Most people jeopardize themselves because A, they have a problem with substance abuse, or B, they're experiencing that very same thing, which is called poverty. But we have to be able to have conversations like these, right? Where we're truthful about it. We're truthful about it and we take ownership, like, yeah, I have clutched my purse before, and examine why. Let's talk about why. And it's because we have been programmed, right? Because of all these false narratives that come on the television that uses words that are like destructive, like ex-con and all of the things, when in actuality, if you inject my humanity in there, it might not be as easy for you to think of me in that type of way. You know, the other day, Sharticia sent me an article about people negotiating with people who are incarcerated for their organs so they can get less time.
I saw that. I saw that.
That's crazy. Literally give of your body so you could come out with half a pinky and half a pinky toe.
Hmm.
Yes,
Come on.
yes. But if folks are not considering us cattle for the slaughter, the fact that you want us to harvest our organs to try to do anything to escape prison, then if that is just not a aha moment right there for us to understand that prison is not about crime and punishment, but it is about a business. It is about making maximum profits for your shareholders. And the actual product is human bodies, very much the same as it was 400 years ago in the transatlantic slave trade, in the domestic slave trade, and now it's mass incarceration trade. So
Right.
it's the same.
And so one, can we take a deep breath? I'm gonna take a second. For everybody, right? What is you say this, a quill? I don't agree about the ex-cons because I have to explain what that means from a broader perspective. Okay. Okay. I would like to see the broader perspective. And I wonder if you're talking about us or from your side. Let us know. But for me, Bridgette, that's why I wanted to give some context to it, right? We talk about financial wellness, and Chartisia says heavy, I know, right? And you ladies know way more than we do, but we know that it'll make you feel a certain type of way about yourself, right? When you make less money, let's just use one thing. You make less money than you deserve, and your skill set and your potential might warrant you, right? But when all this other stuff happens, it really starts to make you look at yourself. And so that's why I wanted to look it up. I see it. That's why I wanted to lift it up, so that the women who are thinking about dating the men, so that the men who want to be dated and the women who want to be dated, that it's the system and it's not you and your worth. Like Charticia said, your worth is still intact, even though in this environment, the way that somebody treats you or the way that things are written and the way that they've been operating might value it differently.
Yeah. So I wanted to say something to the gentleman that had the comment in the chat. So
Yes.
there was an amazing lady who used to work at the Southern Center. She passed away 2 years ago. Her name was Marissa McCall, an amazing human being, attorney. I remember when I came home from prison, folks would call me different things, prisoners, felon, ex-cons, all of the things. So I operate from a lens of language justice, because we create the realities that we want to see, and it first begins with the way that we talk, right? And the ways that we just dismantle the labels that are given to us. So that's what that is about. Now, if you found a positive connotation for anything, I celebrate you. I celebrate you, right? Fundamentally, folks, we may not agree like on every single thing, but we fundamentally agree on freedom, and I want to see you there. So, kudos for you taking something that was a negative connotation and making it fabulous. So kudos to you on that.
I love that.
And I
And
want to tell our listeners real quick,
yes,
Akil, we will totally put your link in our show notes for our listeners. And I've looked it up on Amazon, and we'll put a link if folks want to check out your book. Thanks for lifting that up.
yes. And that's why I love your work, the work that you do, the work that Sharticia does. Not only have you ladies got back home and came out swinging and not only helping yourself and your families, but other people too, so huge kudos to you ladies. But what else was I going to say? I do not remember right now. I know we were talking about the language justice, and I would like you to go a little bit deeper into that and the different ways that we can be more conscious of how we speak.
Yeah. So, I firmly believe, I don't know what anybody else, subscribes to as far as a belief principle, but I do know that we manifest through the words that we speak from our mouths. So we don't realize that a lot of times we're sad because we say that we are. We're unhappy because we say that we are, right? Like, even if we are genuinely experiencing human emotion, but we stay that way if we continue to convince ourselves of this, right? So I believe very similar to the word inmate, right? Like, all of these words have taken out our human side, right? Like, our ability to be human. They've labeled us by numbers, by words, but they've taken out human being. Like, during my tenure in prison, folks called me Simpson. Like, I hated my last name. I didn't want to hear it again, right? What's your number? Like, these are the ways that folks referred to you. And that became my habit. That became my habit. What I heard became what I repeated. And it wasn't until Marissa said, "Hey, you are not, you are not a ex-con. You are not any of these words that people say that you are. You are a person first before you're anything else. Your humanity is what trumps. So therefore, whatever it is that they call you, they need to put person on there." So it was formally incarcerated. Yeah, I was formally, I was incarcerated, but I'm a person. So there's no way that you can call me without calling me a human. Call me a person. So yeah, I'm a justice impacted person. If there is not person at the end of the sentence, then I don't feel like you're talking to me, right? I feel like you're talking to an experience that I had, but I don't feel like you're speaking to the person that is associated with that experience. So I think that was the main impetus of it, and it was to be able to inject humanity back into this very ugly thing, right? Because prison is ugly, right? We can romanticize things all we want. Folks write all these brilliant books about our experiences, except it's ugly and they don't have to live it. They didn't
Hmm.
have to live in cars. They didn't have to have the experiences that we had to use to turn, ashes into beauty. They didn't have those things, right? All they had are pens and beautiful, brilliant degrees. But that experience is why we do the work.
Hmm.
I would love to tell you that we're doing it for the hundreds and thousands of people that are, impacted by incarceration. But really, I'm doing it for my niece. I'm doing it for Dunia. I'm doing it for Sharticia. I'm doing it for the people that are around me. But more importantly, I'm doing it for me. I'm tired of being rejected. I'm tired of doors being slammed in my face. I am tired of people treating me like I have, scales.
Hmm.
I'm tired. So the work that we do, it comes from our hearts. And when you do something because you are led by your heart and because of a need, a desperation, we desperately want to be human. And that is why we do this work.
I love it. And like you said, and that was going to be part of what I was saying earlier. We talked about, okay, people, if this person is full, then he's not going to need to steal a loaf of bread, right? And what I know studying psychology is that biology is one third of it, and then your environment is the other two thirds. And that's what I love about the work that you and Shartisi and your teams and everybody that you guys are connected to do, because you make that a better environment for everybody to come out into and to have. Um, language around it, have more opportunities around it, and legislation now that's backing it up. So again, kudos to you and your bravery is stepping out, even being on StreamYard with us with technology, like
Yeah.
you said. Yes,
Thank you.
yes, of course. So we also talk about what you do for yourself,
Yeah.
right? Because it's a lot. And like you said, it's not just we talk about sometimes stuff is bigger than one body. So hundreds of thousands, millions of people over years, that's a lot to hold on to. How do you put the weight down? And what are you going to do this week to take care of yourself when we talk about wisdom in action?
Yeah, so I think this is the part that I am not that good at transparently, right? Like I
Okay.
don't want to come and and lie.
Yeah, no.
So like I tend to go a lot harder um than I should. Like yeah, like so this is the part where I often struggle through, but
Hmm.
very recently I've been forcing myself to go get a massage, to go and get my feet and my nails done just so that someone could give me some give me some attention, right? So yeah, definitely I am de- going to be more intentional, and I'm so glad that you guys asked me that question because
Yes.
I'm going to schedule my massage like
Mm,
after I get off this call. And on Friday, I'm gonna hang out with like my nieces. So I love, adore children because they represent such purity to me, such truth.
yeah,
And I'm gonna hang out with them. So that's like a rejuvenation for me. Because sometimes I feel like the 10 years that I've done,
yeah.
that I was like in a time capsule and I didn't actually mature to my age that I am
Mhm.
now. So there's a part of me that absolutely draws a lot of my resilience from children. So that's going to make me feel really amazing. And I love to paint, so that is something that's amazing for me.
I
So
hear you.
yeah, so I love to paint and do those artistic things. Yeah. So
I hear you. And I hear you on the having to remind yourself to put it into the schedule. That's something I had to do with laughter. And I share that story every now and then when I was depressed in middle school. I said, you know what? I need to laugh every day. And on those
mhm,
days when I realized I didn't laugh, I like made myself include it.
mhm.
So it hasn't been 10 years yet on the other side. And I hope that as you continue, it gets more and more easier for you. And yes, to include it when you think about it.
Yes, it is vital.
Yeah,
We have
you
a
got this.
comment, yeah, and
Yes.
it is vital, and I don't
Yeah.
think we make enough space for it.
Hmm.
So this year, I want to radically, yeah, invest in my self care because
Ooh,
if I'm not here, then I can't even enjoy the fruits of my labor. So
yes.
that was a great reminder. Thank you. Um,
Self-care. I
Thank
love
you,
it.
Angela. Yes, self
thank
care
you.
makes our activism sustainable. It's
Yeah.
vital.
And
Absolutely.
and that's also why I specifically asked you, because I know that the suicide rates and everything have been going up, whether it's politics or social justice work and things like this, because it is so heavy.
Mhm,
So, um, let's see, my wisdom in action this year. You said something earlier that was beautiful, Bridgette. You said create the space.
mhm,
Create the space to have the conversation. And I feel
mhm,
like, and it's even today, that's what we're doing on Women Connected in Wisdom. So
mhm,
creating that space so people, this is how, wait a minute, I need some elbow room. Let people have
mhm,
space in their life to be all
mhm,
of who they are, So I
mhm.
love being able to do that. And that is my wisdom in action. Hashtag create the space.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you, Christine? What's your wisdom in action for intellectual wellness?
Well, I am thinking about like just learning more, like
Mm,
showing up, like, we talk often on the show about know your numbers, right?
yeah.
That statistic, Bridgette, just blew me away. 50% of Georgians are justice impacted. So I think my wisdom in action is to like do a little research and read more. I've done a lot of it from being on the board of Reforming Arts, but there's always
Mhm.
more to learn and there's always new. Like I want to look at the legislation that y'all are
Yeah.
proposing. And
Yeah.
actually, you know what? I trust y'all in the legislation that y'all are creating. So, what I'm going to do, my wisdom in action is going to be to reach out to my representatives to support the legislation that you are already proposing. So, if you will also give us those links
Mm.
so people know what to support? Do you have those bills off the top of your head?
Yeah, so the bill that we're actually proposing on the 20th, once it gets to the committee on the following Monday, then we'll be able to have a ordinance number. But right
Okay.
now, it's it's the Bill of Rights. So if you go to bardbusiness.org, like all of our things are on our website. And then if you go to our Instagram page, very recently we started getting really active, started to get out of our little shy shells. So we do lives on Friday nights where we talk about all of the good stuff. And it's at Bard Business on all platforms. So you can find us there. You can, you can just connect with us there. We always have something going on because we know that this work is multidimensional. Like we wish we could just fight in one way, but we need different weapons in order to conquer different parts of the beast. And that is our goal, to dismantle it. So,
Well, thank you. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for
Yes.
showing up and sharing your story and
mhm.
for your activism and for your intellectual wellness on this,
Yeah.
for broadening our perspectives and the impact that the justice system has on everybody. So
Hmm.
we really appreciate your time and you being here today.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
Bridget. We'll
You
talk to
have
you
fun.
soon.
All
You
right.
too.
Oh my gosh, that was a powerful conversation.
Oh, so good. I'm thinking about all of the I'm thinking about the ripple effects, right? That's what I think about. If it's 80% are locked up and this many people, millions of people, what about their families that have to call to pay to talk to people, that can't see their
All of
people on
them.
their birth, all of those things and the
All
way
of it.
that it ripples out. So grateful to know that somebody's doing the work, that we can be connected and support. And thank you, ladies, so much, sis. Sharticia, of course, Sharticia, we love you. So thank you for always getting us connected.
And I
Angela
want to lift
says,
up.
thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Angela says to you, ladies, thank you for your work. It sounds impactful and profound. Yes,
Powerful
definitely.
stuff. And we will put it all in the show notes for y'all to get connected and
Mhm.
find out to how to learn more and how to be a support. And if you're local and in Atlanta, how you can show up at some of
Mhm.
these events
Yep.
and get
Tomorrow
involved.
and the
And if you're
20th.
not local, because we have folks all over the nation, Angela's in
Mhm.
Colorado, and we have folks all over the world.
Yeah, we
Y'all,
do.
this happens all over the world.
Mhm.
So check out your local community. And if this is something that you hear this episode and you're like, I want to know more, I want to get involved, there are organizations on the ground that you can get involved with and learn more.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. I love that. And Christine, you do amazing at this. Hey, I need to learn more, doing your research. But what I also know is that you have done your research on the people that you voted for in office, and
mhm,
that you make sure they're the type of people to support the type of work that you want to see done. And so
right,
I would be, I'm always for the grace on ourselves because you do so much and you're so
right.
intentional. Um, and I know you'll still read it, even though you're going to talk to the legislators about supporting it.
Right. Well, absolutely. I think we need to all be educated citizens and we need
I
to
want to
pay
read it too.
attention and we need to vote our values. And
Mhm.
I think the other thing that we need to think about is even if it's not an election season, like we voted these folks into office, they're our representatives. It's okay to reach out. And in
Yeah.
fact, they like hearing from us when we say, I support this, right? If
Yeah.
we only call when we're angry, then our body gets associated with
Mm,
I'm only going to call. I call my representatives all the time to say
mm,
like I'm in support of this, or and most of the time you're getting a staffer, you're getting somebody, and I just encourage everybody to try it. If you're not somebody who likes to pick up the phone call, you can email or
mm,
you can but pick up the phone. A staffer, usually they're somebody in college, they'll answer the phone and you just tell them what you're in support of. And like what Bridgette was saying, it doesn't have a council, it doesn't have an ordinance number yet, but we
mhm.
could call and say, hey, I wanted to let Mayor so and so know. I wanted to let the city council know. Or you can show up at the city council itself and speak out towards it.
On the
Um,
20th. Yes, and they should have the number
yeah,
after. So, yeah,
absolutely.
follow them and stay up to date.
Absolutely. Well, this was such
Yes.
a rich conversation, my friend, and we are well out of time. So,
I could keep going. Let's do 2 hours today, Christine.
well, we could, but we have a special event to go
We do
to
have
for
a
our Women
royalty day.
Connected and Wisdom authors. So,
Yes.
we probably ought to sign off, huh?
No problem. Thank you guys so much for joining us for episode 103. We'll be back for episode 104 next week. In the meantime, be well, be wise, be whole. We'll see you soon.